Nice DeLorean.
Shh. This is not a damn DeLorean.
You ever read the works of Henry David Thoreau? Well, in his own time, he only ever published 2 books. And a lot of people at the time saw Thoreau and his works as weird, inaccessible, and lacking any sort of long-term merit. Sure, he had his fans, like Ralph Waldo Emerson, who, by the way, was an enabler. You don't get Thoreau if you don't get frickin' Emerson bailing him out of jail. Yeah, Thoreau, I'd go out there in Walden Pond and make beans. Meanwhile, Emerson's frickin' giving him money. Emerson. But it wasn't until nearly 60 years after his death that Thoreau became popular, that people began to see him as an important, even influential product of his era. Long story short, the Volkswagen Corrado is the Henry David Thoreau of cars. The Corrado was designed to overtake the Porsche 944. That's what the Corrado was made to go after. That's what it was supposed to compete against. But it was only really successful in succeeding Volkswagen's own Scirocco. Volkswagen was looking to improve its market share among sports coupes and compacts, but with the A2 platform shared with the Mark II Golf and Jetta, it's not as if this was going to be some sort of European sports car that Volkswagen wanted the public to believe that it was. The name comes from the Spanish verb correr. C-O-R-R-E-R, which means to run. It's the marketing department attempting to plant a subliminal message. It was what Volkswagen marketed the car, the European sports car with a Volkswagen difference, right? I'm supposed to look at a Volkswagen Corrado and think that this is a fast car. Yeah, it has the traditional look of just about every other 3-door hatchback with 2+2 seating layout, but it's a lot more than that. Maybe you won't want to own one yourself, but I pretty much guarantee you'll find something to like if you ever got the chance to drive a Corrado. It's the shooting brake design, well before we started saying stuff like shooting brakes. The problem was it's a little bit too sleek. It's not a hot hatchback. It's not as utilitarian as a hot hatchback. With this low roof and this really short rear end, yeah, it looks good, but you're not going to haul anything big in it. It's for enthusiasts. You can at least understand how this car continues to have an enthusiast base surrounding it, even 22 years after Volkswagen stopped making them. The Corrado debuted with a 1.8-liter 16-valve inline-4 making 136 horsepower and a supercharged 1.8-liter 8-valve inline-4 making about 160 horsepower. This was known as the G60 engine, and it was the optimum option until 1992, when you know what's coming. 2 new engines were offered. They were the naturally aspirated 2-liter 16-valve inline-4, which, well, okay, that's not the one we're talking about. That was never made available in North America. But the other engine was. The other new engine option was the 12-valve Vr6, which came in 2 variants. The 2.8-liter, which made 179 brake horsepower version for North America market, and then Europe gives themselves the good stuff, which is the 2.9-liter, which makes 187 horsepower for Europe land. There are some interesting quirks. There's an active rear spoiler that automatically raises when the car goes over 45 miles per hour and retracts at speeds below 15 miles per hour, although it can be controlled from a switch. But Ty never uses the switch because the wing tends to go haywire anytime he does. But then, a good chunk of Corrados still out there don't have working wings at all. The BBS wheels are standard, having come with the G60 models and being carried over to the VR6s. The SLC badging, it stands for Sport Luxury Coupe. And while it doesn't always feel like something luxurious, it's clear that a lot of care and attention went into this car and its manufacture. It's well built without any of the chintzy pieces of plastic and corruptible fake leather that plagues modern sports cars. But the most interesting quirk of the Corrado is something that was, at the time, its most revolutionary feature: the Vr6 motor. The Vr6 engine allowed engineers to fit a 6-cylinder engine into a 4-cylinder engine space, thanks to math. No, seriously. This engine uses a narrow 10.5 degree or 15 degree V engine configuration that allows 2-cylinder banks when using a 6-cylinder engine, but with only one cylinder head, which covers both rows. It says double overhead cam, doesn't it? Yes, in theory. Yes, that is. But that depends on whether or not you consider this an inline six or a V6 engine. Well, we just got done saying it's a V6. Well, yeah. It's double over cam, yes, but there is only two camshafts. And you PA dubbers are going to disagree with whatever stance I take, so I will take Ben Franklin's approach and saying, it is my opinion that I have no opinion. But with your help, I will learn what my opinion might be. In a big way, the VR6 is where the Corrado really earned the reputation Volkswagen set out to make for themselves. The VR6 engine design earned Popular Science's Best of What's New award for 1992. Auto Express called the Corrado one of Volkswagen's best ever driver's car. Car Magazine called it one of the 25 cars you must drive before you die, and two separate versions of Top Gear, the 1980s original and the 2000s relaunch, regarded it as a future classic. Everything was coming up Millhouse for Volkswagen, but you never really know it because there wasn't a huge buzz surrounding the Corrado at the time, which is kind of surprising actually, because Volkswagen was getting a shit ton of publicity, which they didn't bank on. With all the positive write-ups, you would think this would be a world beater, and it wasn't. Why? I mean, Car and Driver recorded the Corrado 0 to 60 time as part of this review, and in comparison to competitors like the BMW 325i and the Nissan 300ZX and the Mitsubishi Eclipse GSX and the Honda Prelude VTEC, the Corrado smoked the competition with a 0 to 60 time of just 6.4 seconds and a top speed of 141 miles an hour, and this was in June 1992. And the car would continue to build his reputation as one of the fastest Volkswagen, products ever built to that point. It was lighter with more dynamic handling and a more balanced distribution since the car wasn't front heavy like some of the earlier GTI models, and it was the kind of car that from outward appearances wouldn't raise a mom's eyebrows. But yet it didn't sell. It was just too strange. But you think it should have worked, right? Because overprotective mothers have been preventing teenage sons from driving manuals since time immemorial. But one look at the Corrado? Well, how could anything bad happen to Johnny Hillstart in something this cute? With that said, even though it's weird, there are some mechanical imperfections. The plastic sunroof is prone to breaking, so Ty swapped it out for the B3 Passat sunroof. It's got an aftermarket catch can, and the entire car has been resprayed. Yes, the paint is different. I mean, they tried to get as closest to the original look as possible since the original clear coat was already messed up. It was toast. But the closest they could really get to the original look was from a 1995 Jetta's paint code. So Ty is trying to wet sand and buff the Corrado to make it look a little bit closer and more presentable, since he thinks the poor thing looks like crap, even though I think it looks fine. This is one of the most pristine looking regular Corrados I've ever seen. I mean, it's got a leather interior for crying out loud. But oh my goodness, it didn't sell. Less than 10,000 Corrados were manufactured ever. There was only 97,521 Corrados ever produced, ever. The Corrado only lasted from September 1988 to July 31st, 1995. 7 years. It's almost kind of crazy how briefly this car's run truly was. I've had farts that last longer, and yet the same way farts spread out like hot spillage, the Corrado spread in the automotive community to where it gained a cult following like Harvey Danger. Ty spent years searching for a Corrado. In a sense, this was his summit car, the impossible thing he never thought he'd find. But the reason he wanted it as close to bone stock as possible is because, well, in his words, young people tend to ruin things. Acknowledging that he was a young person himself. He knew that he made the decision that he didn't want to be the type of guy who'd mod a rarity like this half to hell. Maybe that's because the magic of a car like this is it makes younger car guys want to be more responsible with their classic car, and this is a classic car. Never mind that there are more ashtrays than cup holders. Never mind you can't put down the passenger side and driver's side windows at the same time. Pick one and then put the other one down. This is a rarity that lives up to its inaccessibility. It's a lot of fun. and worth seeking out. And what does it drive like? Oh, the PA dubbers aren't going to like this, but it drives like a Honda. That's what the VR6 motor sounds like.
But I bought a Jetta.
There it kicks in.
Yeah. I bought a Jetta a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and this has a wonderful exhaust note. This is stock exhaust, too.
It's incredibly buzzy, and it's a V6 that is so compact and so responsive, it manages to feel just like a four-cylinder. Imagine that. I mean, if you got in this car and you didn't know the history of the VR6 motor, you would assume this is a well-tuned four-cylinder. V6s. You're not quite a V8, you're not a four-cylinder. You have some V8, V6s that try to be V8s like in the Grand National, and in this case, this is a V6 trying to be a four-cylinder. But it's that weirdness that makes the Corrado such a joy to drive. There will never be a motor quite as weird as this, and thank goodness there are communities out there that are keeping the Corrado running. Thank you.
G60 engine didn't stick around. VW replaced it with the Vr6. Rear spoiler lifting like Monroe's skirt.